All right, if you're just joining us, it's Today with John and Helen on Plus TV Africa. Last week, we started the journey looking at support organizations, and today we continue, and hopefully we should be rounding up on today's outing. So we have debunked, and Madam, once again, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Mrs. Adedoyin Oseni, the CEO of Mary
Special Needs Foundation.
Mary's Special Needs Foundation. All right, so there's so many myths about epilepsy. We want to debunk some of them on the program today. We're also trying to find some solutions and, bring people who probably don't know where to look for help, to find the answers in those areas today. Now, let's start from the very beginning. Talk to us a bit on this journey. How did it start for you?
Oh, really? I had, after my first child, I had a secondary infertility. So I didn't have him until after 7 years, which actually is, he was his treasured child. Okay. But a year into his life, it was raining that day, there was a huge traffic jam that I had to trek home that very day. So by the time I got home, it was my house help that came down running. And I found it very unusual because even she was going to come down that way, she would bring my child and I welcome both of them. Mm. So she just said, "Mom, come." So by the time I got upstairs, I found him motionless and his eyes were blinking. Something I've never seen before. Mm. So by the time I took him to start rushing to the hospital, I found my mom. She was also in the traffic. I think she wanted to come and see me. So she joined me in the race towards the hospital. My uncle too just came in that time, late Chief Tunji Odegbami. He also saw the pandemonium, and we all went to the hospital, rushing, running. We couldn't take the car because there was this hell of traffic. Mm. So we got to the hospital, then we found him jacking, twitching. My mom, I'm sure even if she has seen it, she's never taken special cognizance of that. But this very day, it's happened to her grandchild. And my uncle too was bewildered, and they gave him some medication. He was calmed. Then later again, the twitching and jacking started. Then we moved to Drew Shuleye. And he didn't come around until about 2 a.m., something that started about 7 p.m. in the evening. Mm. So we were told that he might likely suffer from epilepsy also because he was just around 1.5 years old. And that was how the journey started. So we moved from hospital, trying to look for solution to support him. We moved from hospital to hospital. We saw Dr. Sheyu Roberts. We went to Lut. We were told to do different types of stairs, diagnosis, different types of things, findings, investigations in order to know what exactly on how to help. Mm. But alas, we were not satisfied with the kind of solution we were getting because the problem continued. Yeah. When he takes the medication, he gets home, he can't talk, he's just morbid, he's just looking. We could not really engage with him. So apart from the medication that he was being given, there are other issues that were coming up that nobody could explain to us.
So that was that one episode.
Yes, disruption. In the family.
Started
Concern
all of
for
this.
Everybody.
And you see, I've tried to follow your story, and I'm trying to imagine the level of confusion and all of that you have. And it's not peculiar. It wouldn't have been peculiar to you, because so many people don't know what this condition is all about. Now, could you tell us? A lot of people have said it's a mental disorder. Is that right?
It's a neurological disorder. It's not a mental disorder.
Okay, it's a neurological disorder.
It's a neurological disorder.
Not a mental disorder.
Not a mental disorder.
Okay.
Not a mental disorder. Because I'm not a medical doctor, but yes, a mental disorder could be like someone is, the way we would literally look at it, like someone is mad and you can't control yourself and things like that. So it's something that comes with the brain And epilepsy is termed a neurological disorder that is characterized by an electrical activity in the brain.
Great.
So when that electrical activity starts,
Yes.
then there's a movement, there's an unusual behavior with that person, such as twitching,
staring.
staring, lip smacking,
Yes.
jerking. You know, some would you will be hallucinating, some will be having some, because this characterized behavior, unusual movement, some could be non-movement, and there are some can be ones that comes with movement.
Yes.
The ones that don't come with movement could be like having funny smell, could be like seeing visions, could be like staring, could be like having funny taste in the mouth, a feeling of anger, anxiety, depression. You know, these things will happen within that person. But someone who is literally looking at this person physically will not see what is happening within that person. The person might be hearing voices. And when, for example, you're hearing voices and you're looking at someone would just say, oh, this person, I think
of course, you're not connecting.
You're not connecting. I think this person is mad. And you know, these are environments where information is not really much. You know, the person might actually take to his heel or tactically avoid engaging the person. So epilepsy is something that is a neurological issue.
Yes.
And it depends on wherein it affects the brain when the electrical discharge happens. Yeah.
I was reading some of the things you wrote, and you stated somewhere that 5, you know, in every 5 persons with learning disability, there is a possibility of epilepsy. What's the link? Learning disability and epilepsy.
Learning disability. When you have a learning disability, it means you are within this spectrum where you have kind of social inability to interact socially. It depends on the spectrum. If one is at the end of the spectrum, you may not actually be able to get the social skill. You may not be able to get the social skill. But so the trend is that you might be mentally impaired, you might be physically impaired, and you might be socially being able to engage in the society. And that is more on learning disability. Your inability to be able to comprehend, like a normal person will just quickly go like a twitch.
Yes.
Someone with learning disability does not mean you cannot engage or be a part of a society, part of a group. What it just means is that you might be very slow in processing information. Like any other person, you can process information. But when you tell someone with learning disability, you might have some kind of hearing impairment. So you need to kind of slow down, break down your words, and I can assure you, whatever you want them to do, they would do it and accomplish this task.
It's just that your
What it means is that your approach is very crucial.
Yes.
You must give them time to process their information.
You need to be deliberate.
It should be a conscious effort to slow down information gathering. Then sometimes the ability to hold information may not be like a normal person.
Okay, to retain.
To retain information.
Okay.
So what it means is that you might need to use things like visual aids. You might use like gesture, because, you know, like when you are describing things to a normal person, you assume that when you say the road or the clock or the farm, the person, your minds have met, and the person understands what a road is, what a farm is, and what it means when you say work. But with somebody with learning disability and that kind of impairment, you might need to say work. You know, you're including sign, you include gesture, you make sure there's eye contact, because that's how you get their attention. Then you break whatever you want them to do down. So being someone with learning disability does not mean you can't achieve. It just shows that the social inclusion may not be as the way it will be with
regular.
Social inclusion.
And I'm going to take you up on that. Social inclusion. Because you see, we cannot have this kind of conversation without talking about some of the huge elements, societal, problems that we have with cases of epilepsy, stigmatization, exclusion. Those are keywords that pop up when we have this conversation.
How much of it?
Yeah, it's so huge in this environment because of lack of information. When mine started, my son have seizures. Okay. I never even thought about that it's going to be contagious. All I'm concerned is, how do I support my child? How do I help him? How do I support him? So when the seizure starts, is what do I need to do to get him out of this seizure? And the question is he going to die? Is this boy going to die? So, and this environment, we don't really have much information. Even teachers in schools. Some people, apart from the medical doctors who work in the hospital, probably the nurses as well. There was an incident where a training was being done, and it was meant for the nurses in this environment. And one of the nurses had a seizure. All the nurses, despite their intellectual abilities,
that they were nurses.
Away.
The stigma, the environment, the myths, they all took to their feet. So even the learned ones, they teach them in the class. They may not have really come in contact.
They are the real life situation.
Real life situation.
Yes.
So when they see this kind of thing, it's like, what do I do in this situation? So it's so much in the environment.
Yes.
Key policy makers in places of employment, they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
If somebody has a seizure at work, epilepsy, the next thing is, how do we chalk him out?
Yeah.
Whereas what they should do is to look for a reasonable adjustment. Because it doesn't mean that the person is not intellectually able. Able. But the point is the fact that there's a myth surrounding this thing, that is contagious. They are not intellectual, they are not smart, they are not intelligent, they cannot do work like any other person, they cannot get married. All these
And these
things.
are all wrong assumptions.
They are all wrong assumptions.
Yes.
So employers in the places of employment will not take them. Schools don't do necessary reasonable adjustment. There's no policy in place as to how do you support people with medical needs.
We're going to get to the nitty-gritty of that in a moment, because the focus is on support organizations, and you have a support NGO for the specific people. At this point, I'd like to know, how many are like you? How many of your type or organization, do we have around helping and supporting families and sufferers of epilepsy?
I'm sure there are a lot of organizations. They may not actually be, we do even have a lot on epilepsy, because we are also on Instagram and we connect. We have loads trying to say, even individuals who are epileptic themselves, trying to come up with, raising the awareness. There are lots of them around. But what we need to do is we also have what we call the Epilepsy Owners Association. We are on the WhatsApp group. Social media, where we exchange ideas. When we have new things, we jot them. We share information, and when we have new ideas, things to share, we share it. We have it on the social media. We have Epilepsy Owners Organization. One of them is Treat. One of them is there's a lady in Benin. We have loads.
Quite a few.
We have quite a few. It's just that each person's focus is different.
Okay. What's your focus?
My own focus is to support persons with special needs through raising awareness, information sharing. That's what we do basically. And presently we are working on epilepsy and education. We've done epilepsy itself, knowing epilepsy, know your epilepsy, diagnosis, the triggers, the treatment. What do you do? How do you identify? Because we have over 40 types of seizures. Wow. Over 40 types. And the one people know is just the one where the tonic-clonic seizure,
Ones,
where you go, where you fall on the floor, fall flat on the floor, and you know, you are frothing, you are
foaming in
the mouth. Yeah, those are the ones people know. You don't know about the absence. You don't know about the atonic. You don't know about the tonic. You don't know about the tonic-clonic. You don't know about the myoclonic. You don't know about the reading,
all the
photosensitive epilepsy.
Yes.
You know, like this light here, if it flickers, and I have a seizure, I do have seizures. If it flickers at a particular rate, maybe 15 to 25 a second, I might go into seizure. You see people go to parties, they just turn on flickering lights with patterns, and the celebrants or the organizer thinks they're bringing a fizzy, you know, a spark into the environment, so people can really enjoy the fun, not knowing you're already doing some harm to somebody who might have some medical condition in that environment.
Which is why, I'm sorry to butt in, I just realized now, which is why for some TV programs where the lighting it flickers a lot, there's a warning. You know, that says, you know.
Yeah, there's a flashing light around.
Flashing lights. Like,
yeah.
Makes a lot of sense now, doesn't it?
Then there's nothing like that.
Yes.
Someone would just be probably watching the television and it just goes into seizure.
Gets triggered.
Because there's no information, everybody runs away, nobody is there to help the person.
Wow.
And if it goes on for too long, especially the tonic-clonic one, that person may be deprived of oxygen and the result may be fatal. And once epilepsy is properly managed, it's not likely to cause a huge damage. Because when someone does have a seizure and he doesn't get the intervention, the care, the support that that person needs promptly, then it might give a probably fatal result.
Yes.
And all it needs is what we call action. What we need to do, you assess the situation, you cushion the person's head, you time the seizure, look for an identity, never restrain, time the seizure, and if there's a need, immediately call the ambulance. So some seizures,
that is action.
Some seizures, all you need to do, make sure the person is in a safe environment and allow the seizure to take its course. 2 seconds, 3 minutes.
I have about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, but once it's more than 5 minutes and it has not stopped, then if it were abroad, all you need to do is to call the ambulance. And within few seconds, the medical crew is there. But in this environment...
Yeah, but Lagos State is...
Yeah, we are trying in Lagos. We're trying in Lagos State.
Lagos State,
really. But Lagos is just one state of the federation. This is not limited to Lagos alone, John.
No,
right?
just
Lagos
to point it out that
we've got the hospitals, very close clinics, the nearby what do we call this, primary health establishments, centers. I think Lagos is really doing great.
Yes.
Lagos is doing
we must
great.
say that.
But we are not there yet.
For sure. All right. It's time to take a quick break, madam.
Yes.
When we do come back, we would look at practical things that you're doing, that your organization is doing in terms of supporting the family in case there is any member, who unfortunately is suffering from epilepsy. Okay, can we go on that break?
Yes.
All right, so let's take a quick break and we will be back before you know it. Welcome back to the show. It's Today with John and Helen on Plus TV, and today we zero in on support organizations as it affects those who are suffering from epilepsy. And our guest, Mrs. Adedoyin Oseni, is still here. Now, John talked about stigmatization a while ago. The general belief is that a problem, shared is a problem half solved. And I wonder why people shy away, why family members would hide a child or an adult who has this condition and not come open to source for help.
Yeah, this is typical in our environment because of the age-long myths that have surrounded epilepsy. And that is why a lot of people Even the learned, a lot of key people in the society do have this kind of issue as well. But because they themselves don't have this information. I remember that there is one of the governors that had a child with this kind of issue. I heard.
Okay.
But because if it is true, this is the kind of thing that one of the programs that the wife to the governor should do.
Okay.
If it is true.
Yes.
You know, and I'm sure a lot of them are doing this kind of thing. But if they have this information about this age-long myth, because someone with epilepsy is likely to have what we call cerebral palsy. And that cerebral palsy could manifest in things like, we have people with autism, we have people with epilepsy, we have people with ADHD, and they are of different spectrum. Some very low, some very high, some medium. And once this information gets to the key areas in our the education itself, if it's included in the curriculum for schools, we will have a generation that will appreciate what learning disability is and how to cope, how to support themselves in the society. There was a situation when we had one of these awareness programs with the Ministry of Youth and Social Development. We invited some of the students, the prefect, the head prefect, and the key people in the school. And this boy described a situation when one of them had a seizure and he was standing up on the balcony. And they never knew what to do about epilepsy or seizure. This boy just started running and he jumped from the first floor. So what he did was to call the other groups, other members, other students. So they all, like 4 or 5 or 6, they now helped him down. When he fell, they didn't allow his head to go on the floor. And that boy said he never believed it's contagious, because even when they helped him, he was almost falling, because there were 6 or 7 that helped him. He was still jerking and twitching. And afterward, none of them got it. So he has a life experience of not it being contagious. But in school itself, they don't know about it.
Okay.
And that is ignorance.
It's pure ignorance.
The level of ignorance is so scary. And, you want to know, could you tell us, what are you've said a lot about twitching, that. What will be, for a man on the streets like me, what would be the typical signs of this condition when we see it?
Yeah, that's why we have this book, it's a epilepsy handbook.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's meant to bridge the gap between the professional in the field and the common man on the street.
Thank you.
We have gone into churches. We have gone into smaller groups, establishments, trying to make them understand what epilepsy is all about, what could cause epilepsy, and what we call epilepsy, the diagnosis, the triggers, and how it can be treated. So the common man on the street, once there is huge awareness program, that everybody is in the jingle, it's on billboards, it's a bingo on billboards, being learned in schools, part of the curriculum in school to support not only epilepsy, supporting learning disability. If it's part of the curriculum, before you know it, this information, there will be a generational spread. And there will be a generational shift from the gray areas that we normally take as the myth to a period of awareness, because the younger generations, when they see it happening on the street, they would help. There are a lot of people having seizures on the street, and people will run away.
Yeah.
But if it's part of the school curriculum, if employers are aware, owners of organization are aware that it's not a big deal, it's not contagious. All you need to do, you know the first aid, you know how to support, and if there's a need for medical assistance, because there are some seizures, there's some epilepsy that would not easily be controlled with medication.
Okay. You talked about several other people who are doing what you're doing. Let's look at what you do specifically now. There are a lot of people, maybe not only in Lagos, but in the remote areas. A lot of the times I'm more concerned about the people in the remote areas, or even people in Lagos who are in the semi-urban areas in this, who may not be on Facebook, may not be on WhatsApp, may not be on social media, you know. What are the opportunities that are available to these ones to access information and support from your organization, for example? How has the journey been? What are the things that you do on a regular basis? Seminars, workshops, trainings? Talk to us.
The journey has been a little bit tough because of funding. Because I started with my own money, then also my son supported me, and some family members supported. So what we have been doing to raise the awareness and share information, the first thing I did was to say, let us put this thing in black and white. So we're in a situation where I cannot talk to people physically, and one of my followers can do what I'm doing. So because what we do, I recreate myself. Okay. That whatever I'm doing, as a follower, you must be able to do it. So we also do in-house training. One. What we also do is on Tuesdays, we visit hospitals to meet sufferers and the new ones. Because when they come for the EEG, electroencephalogram, when they come for the EEG, what would I do? I talk to them. We let them know that it's not a big deal, because, you know, when they come, you see them so gloomy, head bowed, and it's like, that's the end of life for them or the children. So we meet them, and we tell them, and I tell them physically, I said, I'm also in your shoes. But the difference is that I have information. Yes. And you could see the gloom, the lights from brightening in them, and say, oh, are you sure? There's help. So we meet them. Then we also organize parent workshop. We organize parent workshop probably once in 2 months, because when we have like 10 people, 10 families, then we organize. Some we give them the book and we explain what it is about to them. So whatever, any questions, we're also on Instagram. Every day we do post on issues that affect persons, Very Special Needs Foundation. We post to let for people on this, but for people who are not there, some come to us, but they come to me, they call me, and they're just free to contact. We also have radio programs. We've been for radio programs where people are calling to say this is their problem, what do they need to do. I also have an academia, a professor with a child who is a lawyer. Okay. She had one of our programs and she came to me, and we were able to kind of modify her programs and say this is what you need to do. It's not a big deal. And she's living her life. She's a pretty girl, and she's bubbling around. That's
interesting to hear, because, you know,
a lot of people. We also support families with medication. What do we do? Sometimes we give them a little bit of money, but we also have sponsors who adopt that child. We have someone on hand now. What the adopters do on a monthly basis, I'm sure she wouldn't want me to mention her name. We have one of these senior lawyers. She used to be a permanent secretary in Lagos State. And when we had this problem, we approached her. And since then, she's been supporting this child with monthly medication. Okay. Medication should be free for people with epilepsy.
Is it free?
No.
It's not.
And it's so expensive. And if they don't take this medication, their situation is likely to go worse. Yeah. So it's so expensive. This is an area the government should look into. Government should look into areas of supporting people for their supporting them sponsoring the medication. I don't know if they can do that. Yeah. Create awareness, bring it as part of curriculum into schools, and with that, there will be a lot of even people in ministry. They don't know what this thing is.
There's really a lot to talk about here, because I was going to look at some level of comparison between the social welfare system health-wise for people in this category as it is in developed world and what it is here. Is there government assistance in any way? Is the awareness sufficient? Are there policies for this? My director is saying we have just about 2 minutes to go.
Okay, I think government is also trying, because when I had interactions with Ministry of Youth, Sports and Social Development, I saw people coming in having issues, and they are looking after them. But compared to what is happening, if you have to benchmark in abroad, once they know you have learning disability, you are not able to work, government will support you. Government give medication support. They also, in terms of curricular activities, they support them. They have monthly money that they give to them. I think they also do something close to that in Office of Disability in Lagos State. But there's a need for them to actually be able to benchmark with what really happens. Because there was a time I went to the ministry trying to help them design the form for eligibility. Okay. But I realized that they don't really understand where I'm coming from, and we weren't engaging. Okay. And I saw that they are not really interested. There was this issue, I went to Ministry of Education as well. They're not interested. Okay. Yeah. So it means the key players there doesn't really understand what it's supposed to do.
But we just have to keep on.
Yeah, we just have to keep pushing on and pushing on.
That's why we have people like you.
Pushing on. I'm not relating. Of late, I went to Superb, trying to see what we can do to the 5 special schools in Lagos, and I'm sure they're also looking at it. I don't know, but it depends on the key players. If they don't have these issues,
we'll keep at
it.
We'll keep at it. Yeah. Well done.
All right. Anything you want to leave, like a last word?
Yeah, like now we need to. The medical recreational center has actually been run down. Okay. The equipment, the playground, so we need to upgrade and rehabilitate the place. Okay. So we're looking for people to support us in terms of the play equipment, because when we had it, 50 people back to back can be on the.
Okay.
But now, the last time I went there, it's looking like it's an health and safety issue. The things are getting spoiled. The fence. The fence
broken down. That's a story. That's another whole story. Because I'd like to ask why recreational facility for Modukwekol in terms of epilepsy and physical disability, but that's a show for another day. Yeah. If you don't mind, we are totally out of time. Okay. But we have really benefited from your wealth of experience and the work that you do with people living with epilepsy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah? You're welcome. Oseni, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, there it is. So we have hopefully been able to debunk the myths about epilepsy. We have also provided relevant information on the condition and where you can get support and help. Mrs. Adedoyin, I will say, is both a torchbearer and an inspiration. Thank you once again, ma'am.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, moving on.
Thank you, John.
Make way.
Thanks, Helen. Yeah.
Moving on now. Yeah. Let's make way for our Keep Fit instructor, who I'm sure will take us through some rigorous but needed session of exercises.
You can say that again. And after that session, still talking organizations, support organizations, Pharaoh Owotomo, the lifestyle and wellness host on this show, will be speaking with Dr. Mimuna Kadiri. You know her. They will be looking at support in medical health. If you're ready, in mental health, I beg your pardon. If you're ready, let's go to the gym. It's exercise time.